The following movie is rated R.
Next up, colorism. Colorism has been reduced to the dating preferences and mating preferences of black males. Yeah. Let's talk about it. I want to talk about colorism. I got into a conversation with someone, I don't want to say even much of a conversation because it wasn't that much back and forth on IG. And the concept of colorism came up, and I want to take it a part of the subject conversation that we had. We'll talk about it another time. But colorism and the way the person attempted to use it, it was like, to explain what colorism is, it was like, well, colorism right now it's only respected as a deficiency of black males of some sorts, by way only quantified by their dating preferences. And my thing is real simple. And it's a fine line between colorism and dating preferences. You understand what I'm saying? Because if you notice, a brother only dates dark-skinned women, no one says anything about it. If someone was to even ask, damn, man, you only date dark-skinned women? What's up with that? Everybody in the world, to be quite honest, mostly sisters, would say, what's the problem with him only dating dark-skinned women? Never mind if the guy is dark-skinned himself, or never mind if the guy is light-skinned. That's not even part of the equation. It's not even quantitatively added in to come with the charge, to try to levy a charge against the guy. It's just, oh, he dates dark-skinned women, that's it. We be like, so? Why are you and I would champion it too. But my problem is if that same brother only dates light-skinned women. We don't say that. We'll say he's practicing colorism. I gave you two of the same scenarios. How is one seen as colorism? And we didn't even get into the shade of the guy, whereas let it be a dark-skinned guy especially, and he only dates light-skinned women. That's when it becomes an issue. You might even see people start bringing up his mother, saying, oh, well, you should be basically dating someone that looks like your mother or something, or you got issues with your moms. And it'd be like, what makes you even think that person's mother isn't light skinned? Why it has to be, if you have to date someone that mirrors your mother, which is kind of weird, in our community, that we even use that as a measuring apparatus, who you mate with, who you date with, and it's a high premium. Your mother's influence physically, when it goes outside of the narrative that's impressed upon the male. If he only dates light-skinned women, it's a shot at his mother, and you never seen his mother. What if his mother was light-skinned? What if say the guy was light-skinned, and he only dates light-skinned women? He might even get charged with that. He might even get hit with another charge, like, yeah, that's what he would do because he's light-skinned. But wait a second. I thought you would date someone that looks like you. See, if it's a dark-skinned dude that only dates light-skinned women, he hates his dark skin. Well, if a light-skinned guy only dates dark-skinned women, we don't say he hates his light skin. And the funny thing is, if you ever listen to some light-skinned people, they'll talk about they wish they were darker. I didn't even know that was a thing, but I've heard it a couple times. That being said, we don't have an issue and condemn them for wishing that they were darker. like their other family counterparts. So why is it colorism, which has a specific history, and you mostly could find a lot of that in the Caribbean. Not to say that we didn't have any kind of a system of that in the United States per se. I'm just saying, as it's used today, that's kind of antiquated. You don't really see too many of just light-skinned women, unless it's certain areas. I'll give you that. But as the U.S., like, you could go several different places and you could find a dark-skinned woman in charge of all of those other women. Like, it's only seems to it seems that colorism, at least the way we vocalize it, mostly on online sources, or even if you look at like you'll see it come up in shape. It could come up under any kind of situation. You see it with the Kardashians, and that's usually white and black, but still even down to the babies. You know what I'm saying? And the concept always seems to be that colorism is only attributed in the realm of beauty standards, quote unquote. That's the umbrella situation all of that resides up under. Standards of beauty, in which is the most acceptable. Colorism doesn't seem to have anything to do with shades and power and who gets jobs. It doesn't seem to equate economically. There are no even junior or just average statistical pundits that are doing stat analysis across the United States or even in certain regions to even quantitatively analyze that light-skinned women are getting chosen for jobs and positions economically over them, even down to set-asides, welfare checks seem to go to light-skinned women more. There's none of that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like the Talented 10 never existed or we ever had the paper bag test. These are true. These things have happened before. And that would be more internally amongst each other when it came to selecting who were going to be the next brilliant minds or getting to certain classes and certain social clubs. I understand that. But as we discuss it today, no one's talking about the environments or the economical challenges of a dark-skinned woman to a light-skinned woman. I never see that. Even underneath the design of racism as it exemplifies itself today. And colorism only seems to find victimization in women. And I will say this, they'll use it with children. But the focus always seems to be on the female child, and the focus always seems to be about grown women. That colorism is a thing amongst. I've never seen no one itemize and analyze and show how colorism sets a child back in finding a future. Now, you'll hear someone say, well, isn't finding the right man a future? And if he practices colorism, then she can't win. And my question to be is, can a guy's colorism in his personal, if we use it the way you want to use it, and take preference, I say colorism, it could only affect him. Now, if you're talking about in the social pecking order, do guys be like in social pecking orders? Now you could say it could move. So, like, if all the other guys has a vocal census that dark-skinned women are the bottom, and that's your lowest status as a man, then no, that's not a real thing. if they even play around that, is over the concept that everyone upplays about the light-skinned person. So a guy might be quick to say, I got my bad red bone. But to be fair, we have seen several counterparts about my dark-skinned sister. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. What do you think that's about? And that was a light-skinned brother making that record. So again, I ask. And you really have to ask the question now. If colorism is so imperative, what does it hinder people from? Because I've even discussed it with others who have looked at the Black Enterprise magazine, and some of the most successful Black people, and it's usually dark-skinned people. Which would kind of make sense, because I feel like there's more dark-skinned people than there are actually light-skinned people. No matter where you exist, I feel like there's always going to be more dark-skinned people. It's going to be the strongest genetics. So it would make sense. But again, you would have to still quantitatively be able to analyze that light-skinned women are progressing in all facets, at least before you ever levy the charge that colorism is on par with racism. And it doesn't work. Colorism is more, at least within the United States, more of an intimate thing that we practice amongst each other. You know, historically, even though the biracials, you got to also remember, a lot of those biracials, the reason why they had a certain level of kinship wasn't just because they looked more white. They actually had the physical features of their oppressor. So you would always put some sort of preference over your lighter one anyway. It's more than just the light skin. You look a little bit like me. You look like my other kids. So yeah, you could play in the house. So yeah, you could say colorism worked that way. Why only the light-skinned ones work and seem to work in the house or have the better social standings within the house? Yeah, you could say that's colorism, because you could readily see what they're doing. You can see colorism as it pertains to, and it's more referred to caste system based on ethno race composition. Colorism that exists in India. A lot of places in especially South Africa. That's where you really tend to see when you can't. It's hard to you buy or sell within your skin gradient. We can't readily say that in the United States. But you know what I will say, and maybe there is. I haven't seen anybody that uses and discusses colorism to the volume that I've heard quantitatively analyze how by skin tone, who is losing what? Who is gaining what? Fair enough? And I think it really matters, because colorism is supposed to be an offshoot of racism. And if we could at least readily respect those that rest in power that have as vehemently expressed that racism is prejudice plus power, then how could a black man, particularly the darker ones, because usually the darker ones are always charged with colorism, if by your definition colorism is an objective term amongst black people, unless it's subjective only towards black women, then we'd have to quantitatively analyze where it only exists at. But if you're saying it's an objective fact, then you have to submit where you see that all across agendas that light-skinned people were put up before them when it comes to anything that has economics attached to it. If you could only citate the only place a black person can exert any kind of colorism, because the only power that a black person can ever have is inside of their house, then then the issues are a lot more internal. And to take it a step further, now you'd have to ask, all right, then where is it coming from? Now, if the charge is gendered and you're saying, or it's mostly the men doing it, then you have to try to find the analytics for it. If most of the community is ran by women, then when would men have the opportunity to leverage this type of power in a society where today we're the first one shot? If the only power a man can ever have any kind of true effect is in his love life, a black man, then you're using colorism, which is supposedly a spinoff of racism, on charging it against your man, who is the number one ground zone of the body counts when it comes to race-related crimes, especially resulting in deaths. You'd have to make it make sense. So for me, if colorism can only be attributed, and if you could quantitatively show that that's what only black men practice within their dating choices, then the conversation would be, why is it their choice? Or rather, why they choose to do so. And if we're coming from a community where we mostly have our females at the head, how would you quantitatively find where it actually comes from? In general. That's why I'm saying you have to show how colorism can quantitatively produce an effect to stop someone in their personal life. I'm not saying it doesn't exist at all, but as it exists today in the United States, in terms of how the only way we've ever dealt with it in recent times is only, unless you can show me more articles where you could submit where it's not only talked within the realm of dating. Because for me, I only see colorism in dating. And representation. Now you could quantitatively produce information on that. But you know what? I'll leave that part in a part 2. Till then, let me know what you think. It's Nove. Colorism. The concept, the idea of colorism has been reduced to the dating preferences and mating preferences of black males. Yeah. Let's chop it up.
Just like the
it does not come from the influenza virus, you jackass. It has to come from the same virus to be in the same family. Viruses come in families.
Stop touching niggas with your hands.